Hi guys. So I normally do like motivational stuff or businessy stuff, but I wanted to start a new channel because I know I don't look it. I'm only kidding, I do. But being in my 40s, mid 40s, starting a family in November is pretty interesting for me. And I thought like there's probably other guys out there that are in the same boat and kind of going through the like what crib to buy and other things would just be like, I don't know, somewhat interesting, but I figured it would be helpful for me. And I'm watching other people's videos and reading books, and my family's helping me. And so I thought like I'd put this out there for any of the guys that are in their 40s that are, maybe like restarting, or like me from the beginning. So just kind of like, I was thinking it'd be interesting to kind of understand like where I started from. So how I got here, I come from a giant family. I have 5 sisters, 3 brothers. And for the majority of my adult life, pretty much from like 18 to, late 30s, maybe early 40s, like I thought like having kids was pretty much putting your life into servitude, right? Like if you don't know, I teach karate and with action karate, and I see these parents that work so hard to get their kids to class, and it's just like a minefield of constant work, and when things go well, the kid is great. If things don't go well, you're a bad parent. And I just thought like, oh, it's way too much work for me. And I really enjoyed my life, right? Like I started a business, I started several businesses really, and my partner and I traveled around the world, and it was just, we just had like just a totally awesome time. And then at some point, like I started really thinking about like, all right, maybe like this whole family thing. And even when I was, people that I was dating, they would say to me, if, she had a baby, they would say like how rewarding it was, but to me it was just like a pain, right? Because they always needed a babysitter and all these other issues. And I really believed that there were people that were designed to be parents, right? Like that truly like thrived and lived, and it was awesome for them. But I also believed a giant percentage of parents, when they would talk about the joys of parenthood, were just lying, right? Like they just thought like yeah, there's maybe parts of it, but there's no way this could be enjoyable, right? Like, and keep in mind that like back in history, kids were an asset to the family because they would like work on the family farm. But now kids are nothing but like a drain, right? Like of time and money. They say it costs about $250,000 from birth to 18, about 250 grand for the average child. And I asked my dad about it the other day, and he was like adding up numbers, and he's like, yeah, I think that sounds about right. He said he's always thought about $10,000 a child per year, so that's 180. And my parents are pretty frugal, so maybe that's about right. So anyway, when I started like really think, and by the way, I was resistant to this. Most of my siblings don't have kids because they kind of feel the same way. And I think growing up, teaching karate around kids all the time, and then growing up with so many kids in my life and seeing my parents struggle, a load of laundry at least once a day, maybe twice a day, the amount of food they had to buy every day. I think at one point my family was going through like 12 gallons of milk a week, and thinking like, oh my God, what does this cost? And my dad would come home from his second or third job and put the kids in the bath, and my mom worked too, and then do laundry, and then go to bed late, then wake up early and get everybody ready again. And he would leave by like 6 a.m. in the morning, sometimes earlier, to get the train to go to work, and then come home to that, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is awful. So my life was great, right? And it was fantastic as far as like travel, business, friendship. I golfed 3 or 4 days a week. Like I was like, this is the life. But then so it started to change for me as I got closer to 40. I don't know if it was a midlife crisis or whatever, but my mom, of course, was always nagging me to have children, but I just thought she just thought it was a good idea. And, just because it's her idea doesn't mean it's my idea. And a couple things happened. Number one is I watched my brothers graduate from high school and even like elementary school more recently for my father. And I would watch the pride in my parents' faces as it happened. And I would think, I'll never have that. And then I also, especially for my dad, I would watch like family events where like everyone dotes on him Like he has like so many, like my sisters, my brothers, everybody is like, you know, Dad, what can I get you in food? Dad, let me walk you over here. Dad, what can we do for you? And I watch kind of from the distance, and I do some of it too. Like I like to, go places with them. But like when I watch and I'm thinking like, I'm never gonna have that. And by the way, having kids doesn't guarantee you're gonna have that. It's also what I thought. Like, okay, well, he was lucky that he raised his kids in a way to like be close and bonded. I might mess that up, and maybe my kids will hate me for some reason. But I used to watch that and I almost had like this pang of like jealousy. And the other thing was I would watch This Is Us, and I watched this. And if you watch This Is Us, that show is very emotional. And I don't even consider myself an emotional person, but I'd watch like their family connections, and I think like, man, I'm never gonna have this. And some of my new friends, some of my new girlfriends would like, that had kids would say like, you're missing out, you're missing out. But I thought they were just saying that to trap me into like their nonsense life of like so much, work and effort. Like for me, if I wanted to go to New York to see a Broadway show, I can decide at 11 a.m. and leave by 11:12, like 11:15, because like there's no responsibility for me. I just get up and walk out the door, right? Like I didn't have to get a babysitter. I didn't have to figure out what everybody else was doing or spend the money on all that other stuff. So two main conversations that did happen to me. One was my mom, as she would normally follow me around when I would see her and tell me what a mistake I'm making. And like, the clock's ticking here. You need to like get this done now. And this isn't for everybody, but for me, she said, you built a business and it's relatively successful and you're doing well and you're going on all these vacations, but she's like, any money you're saving, you can't take with you. And she's like, if really it's too much work for you, she's like, you could hire somebody to like help you, whether it's like a nanny or an au pair or somebody part-time. She's like, if it becomes too much, like, she's like, whatever money the money, you can't take it with you. And like, I remember her telling me that, and I was like, that's true. Like, I'm worried about saving, but what am I really saving for? And by the way, I started to notice more and more like cool family events, like Mr. McCreary. You guys don't know him, but he's one of the head instructors of our school. I'd watch him with his kids and think like, wow. Or one of the other instructors, I was at one of the schools and there was a video up, and he's like, he has 4 kids, and he was like, boy, I miss those times. And I was like, yeah, but we invited you to golf all the time. You can never golf. But like, that was more important and better for him. And I was like, and again, I would think, man, I'm never gonna have that. So the second conversation, besides the relentless conversations with my mom, I went out to dinner with one of my friends. I do angel investing. And this guy that I'm friends with is a wealthy guy, pretty much retired, in his 40s, and he just started having children. And I asked him, I'm like, so what do you think, right? Because I really valued his opinion. I thought his lifestyle was awesome. He's like, listen, I've traveled around the world. And this guy's like much more successful than I am, like financially. And he said, I've traveled around the world and I have stayed in hotels where we've, been at the top floor, butlers, in Dubai, like literally the nicest hotel on the top floor with the nicest stuff. He's like, truly. And I thought the same thing, like, oh, having kids, too much trouble. He said, and this was really like moving for me because I felt like I was aspiring to his life. And he's like, I would rather watch my son at the YMCA blowing bubbles in the pool any day of the week than have that room with the butler. He said like, yeah, like the room with the butler is really cool for a few minutes. Like you get to kind of talk about it. He's like, but he said with my kids, he has 2 kids now. And he said like when they run into my room in the morning and like cuddle with me in bed and my wife, he's like, there's not even like close to the experience of that. So that's kind of like how I got here. And other conversations I had with people like would say like, listen, if you never have kids, I think Mr. Kovar said this, he's like, listen, if you never have kids, you're not gonna know what you're missing, so it won't matter. He's like, for me, it's the greatest joy. He's like, yes, spending money for like private school and, the effort of doing it, or Mr. Rappold, driving his kids away to college. He's like spending that time with them. There's no experience like it. And by the way, on the opposite side, when I told my sister recently, like, hey, we're expecting, she was like, I'm so happy for you. And I was telling her like, we went through, we'll talk about this later, but we were going through something with it. And she was like, I'm so happy for you. I'm so happy for you. I was like, happy for me. When I asked her what it's like to have a child, and she didn't start until she was in her 30s, she's like, well, if you ever had root canal, imagine root canal every single day of your life. And that's how she described it. I'm like, so you're happy now that I'm getting root canal every day of my life? And she's like, yeah. She's like, I still think it's like root canal. But it also is tons of work and tons of like challenges, and you know, like I don't have my own life anymore. You know, she used to go to the gym every day and like do whatever she wanted with her friends after work. And she's like, I don't have any of that anymore. She said, but it also brought me the greatest joys of my life also. So that gives me some hope that I'm making the right decision. And by the way, I don't think it could be possibly a wrong decision. It just will be like, you know, different in my life. And I'm hopefully that like I've already done all these great things and kind of lived my life in reverse of some other people that, you know, had families in their 20s and babies, and now they're, you know, now they can travel and do other things in their life. So that is how I wound up here. So what I'm gonna do is every couple days, whenever we're doing something, whether it's picking a name, which, you know, has already caused arguments, or you know, what baby bottle to pick, or I don't know, whatever. I'm just gonna share what I'm doing, maybe give some, you know, like our reasoning, and then, you know, maybe be helpful to somebody else. So my goal is always to be helpful, so I hope that is interesting or not interesting, or share or don't share, whatever you wanna do, or subscribe at the bottom, whatever makes sense to you. Thanks, bye guys.